This week we're going to be multiplying and dividing with negative numbers, and so we're going to take some notes. I'd like you to have these notes before you come to class tomorrow. We're just going to start off, multiply and divide. And you're copying these notes. So I'll put them in my notebook and you copy them as well. I'm going to just show you a little tool that maybe will help you when we solve some problems tomorrow. This is like I call it a multiplication and division badge. So I've got this MD in here. And on the top of the badge I've got my two stripes. Those are my negative signs. And on the bottom I've got my plus sign. And we're going to see that this kind of works like this, that we just rotate around the badge. A positive number multiplied or divided by a negative number equals a negative. Positive times a negative equals a negative. And if I were to go this way, a negative times a negative, as we just saw in the other video, equals a positive. It looks like this. So then I want to compare that and make sure you're looking at these side by side. What we did last week when we were adding and subtracting. So let's see how that looks different, because it really looks quite different than the multiplying and dividing. So go ahead and copy these notes as I do. So instead of MD, multiply, divide, I'm going to use AS, add and subtract. And we'll put a box around it, because remember we were looking at those number cubes. That's kind of our thinking. And I'm going to do this one with all positive numbers. So I got my pluses. And if you have highlighters, do that. I'm going to turn these all red, because we're trying to remember that our positive numbers are red. That's because I got red cubes. That's why we chose that color. No real reason for that. And then I'm going to do another one down here. We're going to add and subtract. How do I add and subtract? Draw that box again with negative numbers. It's just something to look at. So as we're solving problems, remind us of how we're thinking. And these negative numbers I'm going to make all green. Again, if you have highlighters, it's helpful to do that just to think the right way. And I'm going to go ahead on our multiplication and division too. I'm going to make those negatives green and that positive red. So this is just kind of a visual that we'll look at to maybe help us as we try to remember these rules of how this works. So I want to go ahead and solve 4 problems just to get a picture of what these look like. And we're going to do all of these operations with the same numbers. I'm going to use something easy, and I'm going to come down here. I'll leave this here so you can still see. I'm going to do our first problem, and I'm going to go just 3 times 5. And this is nothing new. We just multiply 3 times 5 and we get 15. So I don't need any of these rules to help us for that. And the same if I were adding a 3 and a 5. So we'll do, instead of multiply, we'll add. And I can see here I've got 3 positives and 5 positives. I have a total of 8. 3 plus 5 is 8. Nothing new there. We knew all of that. So now let's go and start putting in some negatives. What if I had a negative 3 here? And I multiply that times 5. And what this is saying really is I've got 5 times negative 3. I've got 5 sets of that negative 3. 5 times 3 is 15. And it'll be negative. And if I were to look up here how that works, I started off with a negative number. I multiplied it by a positive number. I end up with a negative number. That's how that works. Let's go over here to our adding and subtracting. I got a negative 3 and a 5. So this one here meant I've got 3 of those negatives, and this one I've got 5 of those positives. And remember how we do this? We just look, did I have more red or more green? Well, I could see I've got more of the positives, more reds. How many more? 2 more. And that's why our answer is positive. So let's go look at 2 more, shifting around our negatives a bit. Now let's do this one the other way. Let's swap the 3 and the 5. And let's do 3 times negative 5. And we're going to find we get the same answer, negative 15. And look how it works up here. I started with a positive. I multiplied it by a negative, and then I end up with a negative. And this would be 3 negative 5s. That would be negative 15. Now let's go into our add and subtract. 3 plus a negative 5. What does that give me? Okay, so I got 3 of the pluses, 3 of the red ones, and 5 of the green ones. Which one do I have more of? I have more of the green ones. How many more? 2 more. But they're green. They're negative. So we'll end up with negative 2. All right, let's go to our last one. And then if you have these notes ready for you and out when we start class tomorrow, that'd be great. So what if I've got the negative 3 times a negative 5? And that's where I just explained what happens there on that last video. And we see that for our math properties to be true, this is going to have to land up being a positive answer. Otherwise, our distributive property and our additive inverse properties will end up being false. So we just learned that we're going to have to accept that if that's negative, both of them, it's going to be positive 15. It works much differently here with adding and subtracting, right? So let's do negative 3 and negative 5. This has 3 negatives, and this has 5 negatives. They're all negatives. How many negatives altogether? 8 of them. I get negative 8. So I know this went fast. This was just a quick overview. Go ahead, pause the video if you want. Make sure that you have all of these notes ready before we start class tomorrow. Let me focus that real quick and then I'll end this video. There we go. Thank you.